Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Priscila Carvalho. I'm a lecturer in environmental law and sustainability at the Energy Institute, and I'm going to be presenting on the global justice paradox of the clean energy transition. We are, by many measures, succeeding with renewables going up and net zero targets now adopted by more than 140 countries. Every fraction of a degree we avoid is life preserved, and that matters enormously. But in some of the communities most exposed to the climate change impacts, and communities whose knowledge of how to live in a volatile climate we most urgently need to adapt to climate change, things are not necessarily getting better, they're getting worse. And not despite the transition, sometimes because of it. And meeting net zero targets requires a 6-fold increase in critical mineral production by 2040. And when that happens through the same extractive logic and ignoring territorial rights, consent, and the land that belongs to communities, we risk aggravating the very crisis we are claiming to solve. And when we look at this tracking tool, data, that has tracked 95 cases globally, most of them are being filed against mining companies. Bear in mind, this is a tool that is looking at cases relevant to the energy transition specifically. And in most of the demands of these projects and these cases has been to stop the projects on the basis that rights are being violated, including environmental harms, water-related harms, impacts to communities and livelihoods, and also impacts on protected areas. I would like to bring you to the attention of one specific case, a specific case that is happening here in the UK, and it involves a mining company called Brazil Iron Limited, a British company, and in the words of the president of the company, Brazil and Bahia in particular has the perfect mix to support the steel industry's decarbonisation. The future of green mining, planning an investment of about 5.7 billion reais, producing 15 million tons of green iron ore per year, all with net zero carbon emissions, 100% renewable energy being produced locally, ESG reporting, sustainability reporting, that looks good, code of ethics in place. Negotiating agreements with European and Asian customers who want access to green steel and to fulfill their local net zero targets. Seems pretty good, right? If it was not happening in a national park called Chapada Diamantina, where it is the primary water source of an entire semi-arid region of the northeast part of Brazil. A landscape home to communities with 200 years of history, likewise UCL, 200 years of history, where indigenous and quilombola communities have accumulated knowledge and how to live and adapt to a very volatile climate. And these are the people who are most impacted by this project. Quilombolas, it's important for us to know, they are descendants of enslaved Africans in Brazil, protected by Brazil's constitution in their right to the land. And they're facing damages locally, which are countless. The Rio Bebedouro, if which we are to translate means water fountain, has served these communities for centuries and now has been filled with mining waste and is unusable. And for a region facing acute desertification, this is not just any river. It's a river that is a source of life and risks accelerating the crisis that is unfolding already. And aggravated by undrinkable water, poisoned crops, children getting ill, elderly dying. And then there's also what I would like to bring your attention to today, something that is not necessarily measured in the courts and in a lot of the research, which is the knowledge that disappears with the land. 2 centuries of understanding how this landscape behaves, which plants signal drought, how to manage fires, how to manage rivers in the context of scarcity, how to recover ecosystems, traditional knowledge that these communities hold and we cannot destroy because it's irreplaceable for adaptation. And that's when Catarina Oliveira dos Santos, a 52-year-old quilombola community member with another 103 claimants, brought their case to the UK, to the English courts. The company tried to keep this jurisdiction in Brazil, but it was unsuccessful. They lost in the high courts in March 2025. They lost in the Court of Appeal in August 2025. And last month, I had an honor to do a roundtable of discussion with Professor Gislene from the University of the State of Bahia, who lives and works with these communities locally, alongside Nadir Soares, who is the lawyer of the claimants and from Lei Day law firm, together with Joy from the LSE, mapping litigation as a tool for governance. And together with the audience, we explored the question, what does justice look like in this case? And as you can imagine, this was like a 2-hour conversation and I have 10 minutes, but questions went around, is it the damages for the people? But how about the environment? Is it about pausing the projects? How about the investments? Is it remediating the Bebedouro River, recuperating this river? Or is it about creating a precedent that makes the next mining company perhaps do differently? Or something that the courts actually cannot give, which is the restoration of 200 years of cultivated knowledge, culture. The trial is set for October 2027. And when we look at the other cases around the world that is happening from this same database, we can see that 47% are being brought by indigenous people, 53% are concentrated in Latin America and the Caribbean. And this tells us a lot about whose land, whose water, whose livelihoods are sometimes being destroyed in the name of the green transition. But most importantly, whose knowledge too. And where the logic of acts of physical and epistemic destruction is accepted whilst we do the green transition, what is at stake is our capacity to adapt to climate change. Communities carry centuries of knowledge that are irreplaceable adaptive infrastructure. And what are the knowledges that are at stake? I gave you the examples of the indigenous peoples in Brazil, the quilombolas communities. In the work that we do in the lab, we also get the privilege to learn a lot from coastal communities and the island communities who are at the front line of climate change. And this is what they have in common. They are in the front line of climate change, adapting to it and holding the knowledge about how to live in a volatile climate. Knowledge that we are yet to embed in our climate governance crisis and frameworks. Something that we also learned through our research in the lab, having engaged with multiple locations and communities that are taking the lead in how to manage disasters and completely excluded from formal governance systems. So the question is not just about how do we transition or how do we manage flood risk. There are questions of power, about the knowledge, about who gets to define the problem, who gets to design those solutions. So Catarina Oliveira had to cross an ocean to find a court that will listen. We have frameworks for counting carbon, but way less developed frameworks for counting what this knowledge holds and how to bring it into our climate governance space. This is not an oversight. This is a choice and a question of not just who bears the cost of the transition, but how and where and whose knowledge is building it. The communities we have heard about today are not victims of a transition. They are sophisticated knowledge holders of eco-technologies, conservation capacity, adaptation, sustainability, and resilience. A transition built from that knowledge with those communities and serving them too is the only version that can actually be sustained through time. Thank you very much.